Today's video deals with removing the scoops, the side scoops on the Mto9, bringing them down the cellar and trying to determine how we want to lay out the lettering on it. We have several choices and I went through that and prepping up the parts. Even though it looks like they don't need a lot of prep, they needed some prep. And getting them out, we waded through some snow, waded through some rain, finally got the parts in prime, and by day's end, miracle of miracles, the sun came out and smiled upon us. We got the blue paint. Now today, once again, we had to change our priorities a little bit because of the weather. It's snowing out there now. It's supposed to snow all day. Probably not going to be able to get any painting done except maybe some primer in the back room. But that's okay because I wanted to spend time, and I've been working with John Pothier for a long time now on the logo of this bike, going back and forth making changes. I wanted to explain what my logic was and why I'm trying to leave it for the last step before we do the wheels. I guess it's safe to say we're not going to do any painting today. That would just be a wild guess. Supposed to get snow all day. Always nice waking up to some fresh flowers. Got these yesterday. Yeah, it just does not have the look of a day we're going to get a lot of stuff painted. Now when you design the logo, and we've designed, John basically did this one on his computer. We laid it out, and it was really, this was a labor-intensive logo to have. I wanted a unique logo, similar to what the manufacturer made, but not an exact copy. Now just as an example, the R1 logo is what defines the R1, and the R1 logo is, I think, one of the nicest ones in motorcycling. And many manufacturers have a very unique logo that the minute you see it, you know right away what it is. Another one of John's designs, we wanted a unique one. This was a totally custom bike. All the logos and things are not copies of stuff that appear on the real motorcycle. In the case of the West Cooley bike, John went to extremes to get that color right, and he got it right on the money too. Thomas Luciano graciously helped us out with this. He did some laser cutting, and John designed some of it, and we have that. To me, that's a very defining part of the motorcycle, and what's important is, to me, the wheel color and the decal and the tank badge are an exact match from the same can of paint. Now the Mto9 logo is one of the things that defines the motorcycle. It's what, when you see it right away, you know, like the Chevy emblem. If you see a Chevy emblem, you know right away it's a Chevy. Now whether you like it or not is beside the point. It is what defines the motorcycle, or helps define it. Now the only thing I don't like about it is I don't like the fact that they didn't lay the letters back so to make an exact mirror image with the letters slanted this way. So what John had done many times, we had gone back and forth with how to get around that. Well, there really is no way to get around it other than you've got to recreate that logo, which we've already done. Well, the other day we finished up the blue, and I was able to look down on the computer and see just how significant all these little changes are. Every one of them has made the bike more my own personal, but it's still an Mto9. It's not a total custom bike where you don't even know who made it. So today's job, because it's snowing, we're going to pull the scoops off where the logos are and see if that's a flat black part that isn't painted. It'll require several coats of primer and sanding to get, we want it to stick absolutely perfectly because we're going to have to tape over it for the logo. Now when we were doing model airplanes, Dave Downey, we were doing a model of a B-25, and he said something very significant. He said, anytime you're making a model, and he was a super modeler, anytime you're making a model of something, there's 4 or 5 defining points that make it what it is. Now, in this case, I think the tail section, we've kept it stock, but by painting it, it's unique. I've got to keep something that looks similar to this logo. I can't just go off in left field and make, and I would love to, but then it's going to defeat the purpose of what I want to do. So today's job is going to be to pull those scoops off and get them prepped for the next paintable day. Now I know most people that have never done a full restoration or a full customization have no idea how much time gets absorbed in little things like the smallest of details, like the little logo on a tail. And we went back and forth many, many times. And it was Turbo Steve's idea to put that little curve in the end of the stripe. And when I laid it out, I said, he's right. So everybody has contributed and shared information. And really, the reality, that's the reason we have a channel. And we have a successful channel. And it's more difficult than you think to make a bike look like a custom bike that's a one-of-a-kind, but that the factory might have made it. It doesn't have that look of, well, we used a log for a seat and, you know, something so radical that you lose the fact what the motorcycle really started out as, in this case an RD. And like every bike we've ever done, this MT has all of a sudden taken over our life. The hours are just pouring into it like the Niagara Falls. But every little detail, even those little covers on the frame, when I look at the pictures on my computer, and I've probably got over 100 pictures now, maybe 200, and the tail section being painted. So anybody that's got an Mto9, take a picture of it and then take some, if you don't have Photoshop, take some tape and just go over it and say, wow, boy, did that change everything. Small details make big changes. So to take the scoops out, there's 2 of those press pins, or 3. I think there's 3. I haven't had this off since I bought the motorcycle. And there's 1 screw back here to take off. And that part comes right off. And we can bring it into the cellar where it's a whole lot warmer than it is out here. And these little pop pins, I don't know what you really call them. They just pop. And if you can't get your finger in there, you've got to be able to get something. And there's 1 up here. And once you press them, the part comes right off. Take the screw out and it comes right off. Now so far I haven't found many things on a motorcycle that are really difficult to work on up to this point anyway. I'm going to get that screw out of there. Now when you actually pull this part off, it's the slightest bit tricky because you have this piece that goes into a big rubber bushing and it has to clip around here, and there's three of those press pins go in and 1 screw in the back, and there's a little tab that lines it up. So it's a little tricky, and you really don't want to just force it off. You want to really carefully loosen it at the front and then just pop it. Now it's very convenient. Your electronic connectors are where that scoop covers up. I like to clean up any dust or any dead bugs that are in there. Take care of that. And we'll just go over to the other side. But that's kind of an easy job. But again, you got little things that have to line up like all Yamaha stuff. It's got to be everything. Never force it and never pull on it and just, same as the R1. Very similar. So the screens that are on here, and I thought to myself, same as the screens on the back, there may be a time when I want to take these off and paint them silver to match the wheels. I don't know. I'm not going to do it yet because I don't know how this is going to look until I get the scoops ready to put back on the bike. And that'll be a couple of days for sure. And boy, that fender really floated my boat. That was the part of the bike that had me stumped. And I already have the Evil Twin to the windshield. I haven't even opened the package yet. Alright, taking this one off, very similar, and then we'll be ready to get downstairs. Oh, it's chilly. Doesn't look cold out here? It is. Yeah, it's really handy that these parts come right off so easily. Because some bikes that I've worked on, boy, there's always something that makes you crazy at the very end of it. And I'm always very careful not to break any of these tabs. Oh. You know how many of these tabs I've fixed on sport bikes, and and my own bikes too. And Vlad, I think Vlad's the world champion of having bikes that the tabs are broken on. Now I know this is just something that I'm fussy about. I just don't like working on dirty stuff, and I don't even like working on dusty stuff, but it gives me a chance to clean in there, make sure everything's just the way I want it when it's time to put it back. Another good idea is when you put this back, take a little bit of, 1 little drop on a Q-tip of wheel bearing grease so that part slides in and out. It doesn't, and that part was really in there pretty solid. And I'm always afraid of breaking those tabs. The bike really looks funny without those scoops. Those scoops are a defining part, like on a B25, the twin rudders. And John Cafaro, a good friend for many years and a supermodeler, told me many times how critical. He actually got me the Ferrari stickers that we used when we made the 2 Ferrari bikes. How critical this shape is like the Chevy emblem. It identifies the bike. So before I do anything downstairs, I'm going to make an exact copy of this. I'll show how I do that for my own reference. Now I like to include this information on because a lot of people are unsure about how these work. So here, this is the part, and it's holding the part in place. And what you need to do is take your fingernail, if you have one. I don't, so I always have to use an Allen wrench. Press the middle, and what the middle does, I can't even do it with this one. The middle releases the part. When you push that in, there we go. See, I don't have fingernails. Now that it's like that, well, you can see what happens. The back gets all tapered down. So I'm trying to push it. Now when you want to go put this back in, this has to go through the part, and when you push that pin in, it makes that bigger in the back. You see how it's expanded now, and then that basically holds the part together. So a real easy way, and biggest thing, it's inexpensive for motorcycle manufacturers to put bikes together with these, and it works great. So that's all the tools that we need to put this part back on when it's done. So we'll finally be able to get down in a cellar where it's a lot warmer and use our new coffee maker. Get our first cup of coffee out of the coffee maker. Our beautiful new coffee maker. There's the first cup of coffee out of the new coffee maker. The way these birds are acting today, you'd think seeds were free. So all the mundane chores are done now. We're ready to clean these parts up, and I want to share my philosophy here of I want to make a copy of these exact parts exactly as they are as a reference for me. I don't know if I'm going to want to, and I'll explain what I want to do. I want to take these so this letter comes to a point. I don't really like this. This is not right for me. So I want to flip this side, just flip it over. And John's already made a stencil of that, but I'll have these as a reference too. I'll have two references to choose from. Now before we do anything with the part, I just want to clean it up a little. We'll do a thorough cleaning before we start sanding, of course. So what I realize now that I have this part in my hand, Yamaha did not paint this part. It has no paint on it that I can see. It is molded with this texture in it. It's something they put in the mold. And that makes it that I am thinking when we prime this with the Sealer primer, I'm going to have little hairs and it might need 2 or 3 coats. But the first thing I wanted to do, and John laid out several different versions and varieties of this, and they're laid back in such a way that I can use them. But I always, because I'm trying to keep that look like the Chevy emblem or like the Ferrari emblem, or I don't want to make it so custom that it's not an Mto9. So before I remove these stickers, and the thing with the stickers is that's a real pain. They're really high. So even if I were to want to paint this and backmask them, the thing is I will heat gun these off and paint them on. And paint, I can ultimately bury that in clear, and it'll be perfect. Stickers are always so, but of course that's the world of motorcycling. So by having it custom, this will really be, I think it'll really be, this is going to be a focal point of the motorcycle when I'm done with it. So this is not going to be a 1-day or 2-day thing. I want to get this right on the money. So because of many years of modeling, this is kind of one of my areas I'm comfortable doing, is making what I call paper dolls, patterns, and it's part of what I can do realistically, and probably some of that information is good even if you're not a modeler. So the thing is, just ordinary office paper, and now I just have one of my artist pencils, soft pencil. Even an ordinary pencil, it doesn't even matter, and you can see what I'm doing. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. And because those stickers are so thick, well, we're going to have a very nice rendition of this. Now we only need this side because the other side is going to be transposed. It's going to be flipping backwards. And I want to get the box, even though I don't know if I'm going to use it yet. I'm not sure. We're going to figure this all out. This is one way of making a copy of a sticker if you wanted to paint that exact logo on with paint or an airbrush. Okay, so this looks like I'm going to get a pretty good impression of this. Don't you wish you could print money this way? take a $20 bill and just make more. Okay, so this gives us exactly what we want with very little effort. And of course, there's a lot of ways to do it. This is just one way. Now, I can compare that to what John has done. He's taken pretty much the same thing and made a dark outline out of it. And what we're looking for is when we flip this side, it's going to go backwards. It's going to be a flip. So really, I can only use this on one side of the motorcycle. Now the next step on this is to take this off the scoop. And it had, one of the things that crossed my mind is maybe I would want to make this, and John agreed, maybe shiny black. We decided in the end though, and when I asked Karen about it, she had defined a little, no, blue. And it's going to show here, the screen comes through black. So having this nice shiny blue with the silver that's going to match the wheels, that lettering, it's going to be worth the effort. And we're really not giving up anything but a snowy day. Now this is funny, as I'm digging in a drawer for a fresh razor and a ruler, what comes up? I found the old concept sketches we made for the 650 project. And you think I only made one? Well, think again. Well, I did this with John's help, and we did Photoshop, and we changed the bike and put out the background. And John, thank you very much. And in the end, I'm glad some of these ideas I had, when I look back, I'm glad I went with the ideas that I had, because ultimately it's so easy when you can do this on pencil and paper. This was one of the logos we had envisioned to replace the logo on the side, but I'm very happy the way that we made the choice that we did. And on the wall of the shop, I keep the original concept drawings that we made before I ever painted that bike or took it apart. And I always want to thank John Cafaro again for the Ferrari help with his input was critical on that job. And the model planes I made that were like Ferraris. But that concept sketch thing, it pays big dividends when you can see ahead of time what a project's going to look like. Now, brand new razor, a reasonably good ruler, and I want to cut this pattern out carefully. This will be my exact replica of. I'm on a hobby cutting pad. Now I know from many years of modeling how critical it is to get straight lines, crisp edges. Unless you have another way of doing it, you're going to use stickers or you're going to use some alternative way. But by doing it this way, it keeps it simple, and it's the devil I know. Whenever you go to do it this way, you have an infinite control over how to move things around and move the tape up and down infinitely. So what I have now is the pattern for the little pieces, and this is pretty much very accurate to what is the actual thing we're trying to replicate. So what I'm doing, I'm just measuring to make sure I'm back 125 thousandths, because once I pull these stickers off, I've lost all the reference. I'll go right to the edge. Actually, everything here is, you know what it is? This is very funny that we're doing this. This is 250 up. Everything that's done on this thing is done in equal measurements. They really didn't put a lot of sophistication into this. Everything is everything is pretty much, let's see if they're all the same. You never know. But anyway, I do want to, again, I'm trying to keep this look. The look of, yeah, they're not exactly the same. The 9 is a little bit longer than the 0. And the MT is even, so I'm going to measure these up equally here. What it is I want to have the measurement, I want to have a road map. That's my starting point. Then I want to move this around, whatever. And I have thought of, it's always been one of the choices, just eliminate the box and have the 09. I don't know yet, but I want to have, what I'm having here is a road map with all the dimensions of where that is on the original part. Well, there's the part, here's what I'll call a road map, for lack of a better word, and We're going to try to get the stickers off if we can in one piece and just save them for reference. But that's the roadmap. That's what I need right now. So I'm just going to try to get these off in one piece if I can, even though I'm not going to use them. It'll be let's just see if it's our lucky day. I don't want to get it so hot I melt the plastic either. Sometimes they come off and sometimes they don't. Let's see. And of course there's a fine line between where they're too hot. Yeah, this is not going to come off in one piece like I hoped, but not to worry. I guess we can't use that. See, now, it's just funny that I said it. Now that's why I have a replication, because these bars are not the same on the edges. If I pull these off first, I'll never get it back the way I want it. And I had thought of, see, this is what I originally want, but I want it further up to the front. I originally thought I'd want it bigger, smaller, longer, fat, and I tried, and John actually made some Photoshop things, but when I was done with it, and I got all done, I somehow in my mind, keeping it the standard, almost exactly the standard size, or maybe 1/8 of an inch bigger, I'm going to lay it out with tape, of course, once I get these parts painted blue. But I have the roadmap. Looks like I'm not going to have these to deal with. I'll heat gun the rest of this off. And then I guess the best thing right now is we're ready to sand these parts and clean them, sand them, and get them primed. That's about all we're going to be able to do today because it's still snowing. So with all the stickers off, and I'm ready to pretty much clean this up, get it prepped, and we're hoping this the weather's going to get better as the day goes on. It looks like it is. The forecast is that it is going to stop soon. We'll see. Now, as usually happens, the second one will always go quicker, and I don't need to save or measure this one at all, but I did just to make sure the gaps are the same, and I haven't, it looks like, if you don't look at this logo close, it looks like there's 3 equal boxes, but there isn't. There's smaller, bigger, and biggest. And that's why, if I'm looking to keep that look, if I made all 3 or 2 of the boxes the same, it would really be, you're going to make yourself crazy trying to make it have that exact look. Now, and in my case, it's just something I want. Not everybody would want it. And by the way, you can buy these stickers off the internet. I saw some company makes them in all different colors, but I don't want stickers. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. I don't want stickers. I want paint. Now, being honest, when I got the R1, and I didn't like the stickers at all, so I took the heat gun and took them all off, but I know some people that have done, and we've actually done some of it here, where if you get the part too hot, this is plastic, you can melt it or ruin it, and then of course you got a Bondo job or something that you really don't want. There's a fine line, and if you're really in doubt, use a hairdryer. A hairdryer can get these plenty warm to get them off. And I want that to be a smooth surface because obviously we're going to clean it and paint it as the next step. And when you're pulling these off with a razor blade and the plastic is soft from the heat, you got to be careful you don't gouge it and put little dents in it and everything. Otherwise, again, it's going to show up in the final product and you'll be disappointed. So the next step is 400 Industrial Sandpaper and some soapy water. Nothing high-tech. Couple of drops of any dish detergent, and we'll be ready to clean those parts up and get them prepped. Now, like everything we ever do in the shop, before I ever hit this with sandpaper, get it really clean. There's plenty of wax on this, I'm sure, from cleaning the motorcycle, the spray wax especially. So to have it perfectly clean, and I'll even go over the sink and rinse these parts off when I'm done. I don't leave any soap residue. Now, there's a couple of curveballs on this already. When I looked at this part, it has a curve to it, which means, and you think this is not a big deal till you go to do it. If I make a paint mask and try to curve it around, picture going around a golf ball, it's not going to, it's going to be terrible. So I'm basically going to have to lay this whole thing out with tape. Not a big deal. I'm very comfortable. It's the devil I know doing that. But it changed my plan because I had originally thought I'd just do a mask. Well, when you're going over a curved surface, picture and try to put a mask on a basketball, and you see, even though this is a slight curve, it's going to be a problem. And I don't want to have a problem. When you do tape, a tape mask bends, picture like if you put a net over a basketball. So that's step one. Step two, all the way, everywhere the stickers were, is make sure there's none of that little grit on there. Because when I sand this, I don't want to go down into that grit. That's a problem. And I don't want to spread that grit all around. So I'm being really, really careful. And this is a good old simple green. All right. And we'll get the 400 sandpaper and clean this up. I'll go over the sink, rinse it off. See, I want to have this perfectly etched because I'm going to put this part, a couple of reasons. It's going to have back masking and masking. And this is a part I can't do all the paint in one day. So it'll be it'll be to our advantage that it's such a crappy day because I'll just be able to get the prime on and let the prime dry overnight up by a heating vent. Then when I get the blue on, I'll have to look at and do a little tape test and make sure everything's bonding to this. But you think it's real, you think it's really by cut and dry, it isn't. And anybody that's ever painted a lot of stuff in their lifetime knows that feeling of when you go to pull a mask up with a tape and the paint comes up. Oh, that's a sickening feeling. No matter how many times I've done it, I always am so happy after I get the last piece of tape pulled up and then I can do the clear. Having that bright silver, the paint we're going to use on the wheels, the logo will match the wheels. I think that's going to be pretty special, just like it is on the Kawasaki, the black Kawasaki. And this, of course, is one of the things I want to be real careful. I want everywhere there's a sharp edge, I want to radius it. Everywhere there's one of these raised edges, I want to get a nice etch on it. The 400 paper is just about perfect. Whenever I've tried to use rougher paper, what's going to happen? And it's going to happen quickly. As soon as I put the prime on here, it's not going to be a nice smooth coat of prime. It's going to have those little hairs from painting plastic. But then when you see those hairs too, and you put the second coat, pretty much you've got a good bond on it. So as soon as I saw the water getting black, I knew they had put some kind of finish on this, some kind of flat finish. But again, it looked real in the beginning. It had me, they fooled me. It looked like it was plastic. But anyway, it's sanded. And the most important thing with any of this is to get a good etch. A good etch is very important. Okay, so I was wrong about this part because I see they did put a very, very thin coat. Boy, you couldn't put a thinner coat of paint on that of this, what I'll call flat black. And I did go through right on the high spot. So it's telling me that there is a coat of flat black paint, even though what I did, I looked inside, I didn't see any overspray. So shame on me, I didn't figure that out ahead of time, but there is a coat of black, so the primer should get a really good bite to that. That should be perfect, in fact. So another clue, as I was wet sanding with the 400 here, you could see there was something on that, and that is, and so the second part, and I'll do this again, there is a very, boy, let's talk about a very thin coat, but there's no overspray inside, so they must have a really good way of, I guess, well, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They have a way of putting a minimum amount of paint on that. They've got that down to a science. So it's the same routine, and not much different here. I know now ahead of time. I know we have some black, flat black finish on there. I still have to etch it. And again, if you get that picture in your mind, what the etch is at a microscopic level, it's like a washboard. If it's a piece of glass or a washboard, the washboard has twice the surface area to grip. And when you put the time and energy that I put into some of these parts, that putting that primer down onto an etched surface, probably the single most important part of getting a paint job that you're going to be happy with. Now the last step is Sikkens M600, grease the part, and we'll be ready for primer. And see what the primer is going to do. It's going to be, of course, the primer sealer. Anytime you have, and I'll show the can. I don't like to leave out any steps. And I know there are people that really want to know this stuff. They're not just watching it for entertainment or to see if I know what I'm doing. Well, they're wasting their time if that's the case. But anyway, I have painted a lot of stuff. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Some of it not so mediocre, and every once in a while, Karen says, hey, that looks pretty good. So, and I guess that's why we're married 30 years. Anyway, get these finally, as soon as that degreaser gas is off, get them tack ragged down, and we'll go get the primer out. Now, this is the primer sealer. Anything plastic, you should prime it with the word sealer. Now, I don't know what finish is on there, that secret flat finish that they have that's so thin, but this has worked good on other parts. We'll see if it's going to work today. Now I'm going to have to prime these in the back room. The weather's still out there. It's still dripping and drooling. The snow turned to rain. And they will get up by the heating vent for a good half an hour, and we'll see what we got at the end. And we'll come back to that half hour, 45 minutes, and see if we need a second coat. Oh, that heat feels so good under the heating vent. Now, it usually never happens this way. Today is the rarest of rare days. It stopped snowing. It turned to rain halfway through the day. Not much snow left out there. And the sun is out now, so I'm going to be able to get the blue paint on this. That puts me ahead one day because that blue paint is going to have to dry overnight. So I'm going to go mix that paint up and take advantage before it starts snowing again. And the blue is custom mixed paint that Dennis did at Gavin's, and we have gotten really a nice match, and that paint covers beautifully. That's a really good quality paint. Well, spraying the Chromax blue, always pretty nice. The paint covers great. It's really it's a high-end paint, to be honest, and pricey, so but it works great. But in this case, the wind started blowing. It got a little bit colder, but at least I beat the system a little bit because there was no snow and no rain at this point in the day. And today, I actually worked right to the end of the day, something I don't usually do. But I did want to get that blue up by the heating vent overnight tonight. Well, today worked out better than I ever thought it would. These parts are going to dry overnight now because we're going to put tape on them. If we weren't going to put tape, I could just put the clear on here, but I'm not going to rush it. This is the one part of this is the part of the bike that's going to be a focal point. You're going to see it every time you look at the bike, and I want that lettering. I'll play around with all the options I have the next time we get to work on a bike and see if I can come up with something that makes me happy. And then if Karen gives it the okay, we're good to go. And once again, thank you, John Pathia, for all your help over the years and with this project too. And I hope you did get some good information out of the video. That's what this channel is for sharing good information. We do try to post something up almost every day. We are in the middle of working on the Mto9. One of the very near future projects is going to be make a set of custom wheels. We'll detail that out on our channel, of course. And I hope that the information is usable and that it makes your enjoyment and passion for motorcycling just a little more fun. Because in the bottom, at the end, motorcycling is about having a good time. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.